Okay, we're back on air. That was Nation Dormouse, sung by, of course, none other than the... What are you doing, Jack?
So, what are you doing, Jack? The famous tenor of the three tenors.
No, that was sung by Luciano Pavarotti, and of course, Luciano Pavarotti gets me thinking of the character Luke Luciano from Atrocity, the Angelinos.
Oh!
Folks, that brings us to another episode of Atrocity of the Angelinos. Anyway, here's the story so far.
Suspicion
Shady nightclub owner Luke Luciano was bumped off in a diabolical day in the City of Angels. A sexy dame named Rose Tewksbury shows up at the office of history professor Brian Christian and puts him on the case. They drive down to the port, where a mysterious man spies on Brian, and Rose disappears.
Okay, folks, as you can see, we were starting to get audio problems. Unfortunately, the whole radio drama cut out like that. Fortunately, most of you were able to listen to it. And starting next week, the off-campus stream will be able to listen. Yes, there will be a so anyway, I'm afraid I'm going to have to record it all myself. So anyway, cue the nightmare. Cue it again. The story so far. Shady nightclub owner Luke Luciano was bumped off in a diabolical day in the City of Angels. A sexy dame named Rose Tewksbury shows up at the office of history professor Brian Christian and puts him on the case. They drive down to the port where a mysterious man spies on Brian, and Rose disappears. Half an hour later, Brian pulls up in front of a transitional house on Kelm Avenue, the home of the Italy businessman Devin Bruzio. Brian can tell Devin is home because opera records are playing and there's light on in a second-story window. Brian, what can I do for you? Said Devin. A dame dropped by with a case, and you had your run-ins with the Angelino underworld through your juke joint your newsstands. Maybe you can fill me in. Not here. Bruzio takes Brian to a City Italian joint on North Broadway, another one of the establishments under his charge. There is sawdust on the floor. Devin and Brian sit at a table. The waiter brings the two of them some garlic bread and Devin a whiskey sour. Yeah, I heard about Luciano's death last night. How'd you find out about it? A pair of legs named Rose Tewksbury came by my office and told me all about it. I just came back from Luciano's dive at the port, where she disappeared. Oh, so this is serious. Does Jessica know about it? Jessica? Nah, I'm too busy grading history papers and driving across town on the whim of milk-white dames to tell her. Say, how do you know about the death of Luciano? Was he involved in that racket you were in after you quit Boreal? Devin lights a cigarette. I used to know that kid back when both of us were in Canarsie in 16. What about the other runner, Jimmy Diamante? Yeah, I'm not close to him. He's from Chicago. You're familiar with the vice they proliferate? Well, everybody knows that illicit activities are going on between them. So what do they have against each other? It always seems like Diamante's been bogarting parts of Luciano's operation to use in his own. His bookie, his column, alike. What is Diamante made out for Luciano's fame back in 27? Feud started then. Doing nightclubs, expansion into other industries. Other industries? Well, racetrack, bookkeeping, and the like. Then Diamante decided to expand in Nevada. Had no idea what he was thinking. All this is scuttlebutt, of course. Of course. So this could be some serious mess I got myself in. Yeah, next thing you know, you'll find a dead fish on your door. Who knows what comes after that? It's real quiet. Devin Bruzio blows some smoke rings from his cigarette. Next morning, Brian is preparing to go out when the phone rings. Oh, it's Rose Tewksbury. Well, where are you? Ah, glad to hear you're safe, sugar. Where were you? Oh, I had stepped into some place to freshen up and make a telephone call. When I came back, you were gone. You want me to come down to the club tonight, sugar? Yeah, I can do that. Brian turns around to find Jessica Fuego. Who was that? Some broad who I'm working on a case with. Jessica narrows her eyes. Boom! You didn't tell me you were working on a case. Well, I didn't want to worry you. Brian kisses Jessica, then leaves for work. After Brian teaches some history classes, he takes the number 5 streetcar down to 1st and Main at the base of LA City Hall, from which he walks over to the LA Times building. Devney was smoking a cigarette. Meets him outside. You still going to have time to go down to Diamante's later today? Yeah, time to change to something more appropriate. They enter the Times building and walk out to the city desk, where Dick Jablonski's clunking away at a typewriter. Dick Jablonski was about 42, with messed up black hair. Shirt sleeves were rolled up, and his tie was looser than a surfer at Kona in the Hawaii Territory. His collar was wetter than a poodle in Seattle, and there were large sweat stains under his arms. Number 2 pencil was stuck behind his left ear. Next to the typewriter is a 4-day-old cup of coffee. Dangling from his mouth is a cigarette. What can I do for you? I've been told you're the person I should ask for information on Jimmy Diamante and Luke Luciano. Jablonski takes a long puff of his cigarette. So, you don't want to find out what's going on around here, do you? I do. I've heard they've been running illicit casinos in Hollywood and down at the port, and other nefarious activities. Well, the casino's just the tip of the iceberg. Heard back in 32, they had a fleet of Dodges running liquor over Tejon Pass. When Prohibition ended, they switched to drugs. Both of them had numerous goons and hitmen in their employ. Are these the type of hitmen that are used to kill people? Just to rough them up a bit. My friend, that's the million-dollar question. You think that Diamante bumped off Luciano for his own personal gain? Heard a lot about Diamante trying to undercut Luciano. I don't believe that at all. Diamante may be a heel, but I always thought he had his rules. My theory is there's some guy deep in the underworld who wants to bump off both Diamante and Luciano so he can get all his spoils for himself. Talking 100 feet below the subway tunnel kind of guy. Jablonski's cigarette's running low, so he puts it out in the moldy cup of coffee, which apparently only serves that purpose. Newspaper guy wearing glasses walks past, and he looks at Jablonski as if he's nuts. Brian continues. I suppose you know a lot. A lot of the kind of know-how that doesn't come cheap. Diamante, Luciano, bunch of people have rubbed me up, but they ain't stopping me. It's gonna take more than a few swings of blackjack to take down Dick Jablonski. Well, my head is on as tough. Diamante and Luciano have been pretty good at keeping their most dastardly exploits from the public. Jablonski lights another cigarette, almost robotically. Well, they won't keep him from me. I'm on this case if I have to dig up half the graves in Forest Lawn. Brian slips a $10 bill into Jablonski's coffee cup as Brian and Devin are getting ready to go. Brian asks one more question. One more thing. What happened to Luciano and Diamante's old flame? Dick Jablonski gives him an icy stare. What did happen to Luciano and Diamante's old flame? Is there really an underground person trying to bump off Luciano and Diamante? Do you really believe Rose's story? If you do, even if you don't, tune in next week for another episode of Atrocity of the Angelinos.